Good evening, everyone. Again, good evening and welcome to the 2014 Annual Spring Reception for Community Resources for Justice. My name is Joe Carter, and I'm proud to be the longest serving board member of the Board of Directors of CRJ and the MC for tonight's program. On behalf of our board chair, Scott Harshbarger, and our CEO, John Larrivee, let me welcome each of you to the beautiful Seaport Hotel and for what I know will be a terrific evening. Allow me to take just a couple of minutes and recognize some of our guests in the room with us tonight. Please hold your applause so that we can together thank them for attending. President and Chief Executive Officer of the Boston Foundation, Paul Grogan. Court Administrator of the Massachusetts Trial Court, Harry Spence. Suffolk County District Attorney, Dan Connolly. Marion Ryan, Middlesex District Attorney. Sheriff of Suffolk County, Steve Tompkins. Former State Senator and Democratic candidate for Attorney General, Warren Tolman, and his wife, Carolyn. Maura Healey, another candidate for Attorney General. Cambridge City Councilor and Democratic candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Leland Chung. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give these outstanding community leaders a round of applause. It is now my pleasure to introduce my friend and the chair of our CRJ board. You might know Scott Harshbarger from his service as Massachusetts Attorney General or as District Attorney of Middlesex County. He also served as president of Common Cause and was the Democratic Party's 1998 nominee for governor of the Commonwealth. Since 2007, Scott has led our board and overseen CRJ's growth into the $40 million charitable business that it is today. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in a rousing welcome to the stage for Scott Harshbarger.
If you missed it, that was Joe Carter. You got to have a little more enthusiasm if this is going to work and all that. Thank you so much, Joe, and thank you all for being here. And there are outstanding public officials and court administrators and many here. And my friend Will Brownsberger snuck in late, so I did want to make sure that he was acknowledged as a state senator since he's a former, worked with me and a colleague, so we're glad to have Will here as well. And all of you, and so many of you that I've had the great opportunity to work with and know, we're very proud that you could be here and very proud of CRJ. This is a very special evening for CRJ, not only our annual event that we applaud our community heroes and get a chance to reach out to so many of you who are our supporters and friends, but we have a real honor tonight to honor Eddie Davis. And that's something very special to many people in this room, and certainly to support CRJ, and we're very grateful to you for being here, and of course, for Ed for being our honoree. I've had the privilege of chairing this board now, as Joe said, now for 7 years. And this board really is an outstanding one. We have great strategic thinkers. We have forward-looking, proactive leaders in the community, very smart people who spend a lot of time focused on how we can govern well on behalf of the board and add value to CRJ. And I'd just like at this moment, if the board members would stand up that are in the room, in addition to Joe Carter, if you just stand up and let me thank you as well for all your terrific work on our behalf. Now, as I said, we've come here together tonight to recognize a very special member of our community and a person that I have been pleased to say is my colleague and a friend and somebody I've known now for well over 30 years. It'd be hard-pressed to identify a more of an example of a role model of an outstanding public figure and public servant than Ed Davis. His leadership beginning in the Lowell Police Department, one of the first really major community policing operations that Ed led in that city in terms of focusing on diversity and a range of issues, working with the Middlesex District Attorney's Office, which I had the opportunity to serve in, and to learn so much from him, then to become Chief of Police in Lowell, and then, of course, for the last several years as the Chief of Police or Superintendent and Commissioner here in Boston. The fact of the matter is that this is a man who has demonstrated that you can be tough but smart. This is a man who's demonstrated that we can enforce the Constitution, protect people's security and do public safety, but also preserve their civil rights and civil liberties. We can have a meaningful connection between prosecution, law enforcement, corrections, and prevention as the best and cheapest form of public protection. And Eddie Davis has demonstrated that every day of his career, and I've been very proud to watch that and see his leadership. And so it's a very nice evening for us to be able to simply recognize that, and he will be recognized by an outstanding leader, Jerry Leone, a little bit later in the program. But I did want to say that in addition to all of this, as many of you may remember last year, which came our reception last year was so soon after the Boston Marathon. And that was one of those events that we still, a year later, many of us, frankly, not only Boston, but the nation, still thinks about and figures out what happened and what it means for all of us. But we were fortunate in Boston to have as our leader Ed Davis. And I think we even appreciate it today even more than we did then. But Eddie, that remains, I'm sure, one of those moments that you practiced for years and years, and the time came and you did it, and we thank you very much for doing that. Absolutely. I just want to say a couple more words about CRJ, because these are very important times for us and for the work that we do and what many of you in this room do in terms of the criminal justice system, working with the people with developmental disability, intellectual disabilities, just in general making government work in a way with limited resources that restores people's confidence in its integrity and its ability to serve people who without us have no one. And we are led by John Larrabee, who is recognized nationally as an outstanding, successful leader in this field, and we're very fortunate to have him here with us, and you'll hear from him a little bit later as well. Now, some of you know us from our work transitioning women and men from incarceration successfully back into their communities. And we've done that and worked so well with many of you over the years, and many of you have played a lead role in that as well. Others of you are involved in supporting our work with adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities. And still others of you are involved with what I consider to be one of the leading national scale consulting practices, our Crime and Justice Institute, which continues to lead the way in evidence-based practices and demonstrate that we can do the kind of reforms necessary with solid professional backing and based on, as Elise Clausen repeatedly says to us, evidence-based practices, and we can do that. We know how to do it. This is a complicated nonprofit organization. And for those of you who are just getting to learn about CRJ, here's what I think you really need to know. Simply put, we undertake difficult and often unpopular work. We say that we work with vulnerable populations, and we certainly do. But what's ultimately we do is provide the chance for a rewarding and meaningful life for men and women that are often marginalized by much of society. We know the programs and services that we provide improve the quality of their life and the people entrusted to our care, and we know that they protect and help the communities in which we live. So I challenge you to stay with us. For those of you that have attended regularly, thank you so very much for being here and staying with us. For those of you here for the first time to honor Ed, we hope you'll get to know more about CRJ. We truly believe that the more you know, the more it will help us, the more we can involve you, and the more it will help our community. So I hope you'll follow up with any of us in terms of interest that you may have, or ideas you have, or suggestions you have. But in the meantime, thank you so much. You honor us by your presence, your support, your energy, your commitment. You honor Ed, but you also honor Community Resources for Justice, the clients and people that we serve, and we thank you so much for doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott, for your words of inspiration and for your leadership. Before I introduce our next speaker, I would ask that following our program tonight, you support CRJ by participating in the silent auction. As you saw when you entered, tables have been set throughout the reception area. Generous donors have already shown their commitment to CRJ by providing some wonderful items for bidding. Please remember, everyone, the goal is not really to get a deal. We are trying to support this important agency in a fun and interesting way, so I would ask that you bid as much as you can, and hopefully both you and CRJ will benefit. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce to you our CEO, John Larrabee. John began his work with the agency in 1974 and has served as our Chief Executive Officer since 1985. Today, he leads an organization employing over 600 staff, which, while headquartered in Boston, now has direct service programs in 5 states and has been engaged in consulting work in 30 states in the nation. I invite John to the podium to give us a brief update on CRJ's progress since we were together last year. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome John Larrabee.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Scott. And thanks for each of you for showing up tonight to make this a wonderful success that it is. I too want to offer my congratulations to Ed. Been looking forward to this event for some time now, knowing that it would give us a chance to recognize the accomplishments that we can list for a long time about Ed, but more importantly for me and CRJ to thank Ed for the work that we've done together for well over a decade, both in Lowell and Boston. One thing, though, while I've worked closely with Ed, we've socialized, we've had fun together, I've never got comfortable calling Ed Eddie. But we have this deal. He doesn't call me Johnny, and I don't call him Eddie. So, Ed, congratulations. I also want to thank several folks, many families, businesses, and organizations for their significant contributions to this evening to make this a wonderful event, but also to this Ed Davis Reentry Support Fund that we've established. And a brief moment, if you'd allow me, and hold your applause as I recognize those folks. Julia Livingston, last year's honoree, and all of our friends at Goulston and Storrs. Greg Torres and Betsy Patillo, former past honorees. Tom and Midge Desimone, Al and Diane Canib, Bob and Laurie Watson, also past honorees. And also our corporate partners, Bank of America, National Development, Markham Accountants and Advisors, the Mentor Network, and Raytheon. Please join me in a round of applause to thank these. Many of you know CRJ, its history, its programs, its services, its mission. We're 136 years old. Actually, it'll be 136 2 weeks from today. The history of the organization, we had 3 wonderful late 1800 organizations: the New England Society for the Suppression of Vice, the John Howard Industrial Home, and the Massachusetts Prison Association, each of them operating independently, but each of them with a common mission of caring for people on the margins of our society, while at the same time looking to improve public safety and strengthen communities. Over the years, those organizations, as well as others, joined to form CRJ. As Scott mentioned, today, CRJ is a $40 million nonprofit charitable business. Our programs and services are powered by investments from state and from governments at all levels, state, federal, and local, and from private support of foundations, corporations, and individuals like you. Our reputation continues to grow from a state organization to a regional player to now a national organization with operations in 12 states, 600 people spread across the nation. We organize the business into three areas of professional practice: community strategies, supports and strengthens the quality and independence of life for men and women with intellectual and developmental disabilities. As a society, we decided some time ago that institutionalizing people with such disabilities was at the very least ineffective, at the worst inhumane. Our highly qualified and very dedicated staff provides the clinical and community-based supports so that these people can experience significantly improved lives as they work their way through the community. Our services encourage and assist these men and women to become active members of their communities. Today, we serve about 200 individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities in 3 different states. Most live in one of our 30 single-family homes, a number we support in shared living or day programming. Our Crime and Justice Institute, as Scott acknowledged, is a nationally recognized consulting practice that partners with governmental and public interest organizations around the nation. We say that the Institute bridges the gap between research and practice. What this means is that we know what works and we can prove it. Our role is to bring that knowledge into practice, working in partnership, state by state, with those who want to bring public policy to the next level and implement system-wide change and improvements. As you can see from the map, our institute works coast to coast, and we're working with state legislators, governors, county executives, and other law and policy makers to evaluate current practice, to design and implement improvements, and to make public policy reforms that not only save tax dollars, but create safer communities. Our third area of practice is social justice services, which serves men and women returning home from prison. Today, we operate 5 halfway houses: Boston, Manchester, New Hampshire, and Albany, New York. We serve about 250 people each day who are making that transition. And for each of them, we work to ensure that when they leave our care, they've got a good place to live, stable employment, and a strong support network. Last year, 1,100 men and women were served in these programs. And tonight, we have a special way to bring that part of the program, our program, together. And I have a special guest to help me with that, Reggie Talbert. And Reggie's going to join us. Reggie is general manager of Inner City Weightlifting. He and his team, working with young men in Boston who, frankly, are among the highest for risk of violent behavior. Inner City gets them from the street to the gym, and Reggie and his coaches do their magic there, empowering these young men with confidence and the powerful supports they need to say no when they could choose violence. The other thing about Reggie is he was 6 months in our Coolidge House in Boston. He's agreed to share some of that story with us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Reggie Talbert. You want to take that seat over there, Reggie? Thank you. Thanks for joining us. So, Reggie, you grew up in Boston.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I was born in South Carolina, moved to Boston when I was 5 years old. Lived in Dorchester all my life.
Yeah.
When I moved to Boston, the racism was out of control. Grew up a lot of running, getting beat up a lot, until I learned how to fight. Then it was the opposite. I mean, did a lot of time, back and forth in jail.
The situation turned for you. Tell me about the time you did, in particular the federal prison time.
Well, leading up to the federal time, I ended up getting shot when I was 18 years old, paralyzed from the neck down. They told me I'd never walk again. Was paralyzed for like 2 years. Started coming back. But the anger I had in me made me worse. So when I got better, I continued to do crime. Long story short, ended up getting 15 years when I was 30 years old. Not because of the crime, but because I wouldn't tell on the person. Ended up getting 15 years. I did 13 years, 9 months, 7 days in the federal jail. While I was incarcerated, I told myself this was it. I had enough. I wasn't gonna come out the same way I went in. So I started doing programming. I got my GED. Started working out a lot. The same thing my boss, John Feynman, was doing on the street, I was doing while I was incarcerated, trying to save the young cats, and I mean, getting them to do the right thing. I was on this thing called Build and Destroy. Build on everything positive to destroy the negative. I ended up getting a lot of young cats working out with me, doing the same thing John's doing right now, saving the kids.
This is in prison, you were?
Yes, sir, yes, sir. I got released December 3rd, 2009 to your establishment.
That's when you came to Coolidge House?
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
Tell me about that experience and what was helpful there.
Pretty much it was on me to do what I needed to do. And I was prepared for it. The first individual, social worker I call it, that I got wasn't good for me. Then they ended up giving me this lady named Stephanie. Stephanie didn't stand in my way. She helped me every which way she could. She provided, anything I asked her for, she provided it for me. From trying to find a location from work or trying to find home.
And since you left Coolidge, you've done well?
I would say I did more than well, sir.
Yeah?
Yes.
Good. And I believe there's a couple of young people in your life that are very important to you.
Yeah, my grandchildren.
Yeah?
Matter of fact, I'm getting custody of them now. Yesterday I went back downtown. They gave me 90 days temporary custody. But I gotta go through the shenanigans of putting the names in the papers and all that. And August 6th they give me permanent custody. I'm just trying to help my daughter out.
Good. Very good.
Thank you, thank you.
Back to Coolidge House for a moment. So, and Stephanie, again, what was it about Stephanie's work with you that made a difference?
She cared. No matter what business you have, you're gonna have some people that care and some people that don't. Some people just come to work just to get through the job and go back home. And then also, on the flip side, individuals like us coming to your establishment, we're gonna do the right thing or not. You're gonna Stephanie supplied the tools for me. Like I always tell John, the toolbox is everything. If you got a toolbox and nobody's using it, that's all it is. But if you got a person that's using the tool, now you have somebody that's an entrepreneur. I mean,
and that's what Stephanie helped you do.
Yes, right.
So is there anything that you would want to say to Stephanie today about that experience and what it's meant to you where you are today? Actually, wait a minute. Why don't we have Stephanie join us? Stephanie?
Oh, for real? My girl. Look at that, what's up, baby girl? Oh, they pulled the rabbit out the hat, huh?
Stephanie.
Thank you.
Oh.
Always the
There you go,
gentleman.
I paid for those flowers.
How you been?
Here, you might want that. So again, what were you going to say to Stephanie about what she's been able to do for you?
Steph. Well, you already know how important it is for a man to get on his knees to ask a woman to marry him. I want you to feel that same way when I tell you thank you and I appreciate what you did for me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So,
And what was it about Reggie that you...
Reggie, so, the difference between you and people that don't make it is that you came in and you were so determined. He had so much motivation to really change, the core of what you'd known for so long, and that's scary and that's difficult. And you, above all, weren't afraid to ask for help. And I think that's the biggest thing, is there's a lot of pride in not wanting to say, hey, I need a job leader, I need an outfit for interviewing, and you did that. And
Thank you.
we worked hard together.
Definitely.
You're giving me all this credit, but you worked hard, and I held you accountable.
Oh, definitely,
I
definitely.
definitely was, smoke underneath you for a long time, but it paid off, and you made my job so awesome, and look at you now.
On top of my game, baby.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jay.
Congratulations.
Thank you, honey.
So, Reggie, you can sit if you like. And what Reggie and Stephanie represent is the best work we can do. In Reggie, as Stephanie said, we had a motivated, smart, hardworking man who was committed to changing his life for the better, and he needed assistance to do it. In Stephanie, we had a person who was skillful and effective, compassionate. Together, we have just a great outcome, and we're proud of you both. Again, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
In closing, I want to connect Reggie and Stephanie to the decision that each of you made to join us tonight and support the Edward F. Davis Fund for Reentry Support. Your gift to the fund helps us succeed with Reggie and others committed to self-improvements and change. Yes, the programs are supported by federal, state, and local funding, but as you can see, we aspire to be more. We expect and strive to exceed expectations in all areas of our business. As a high-performing, results-oriented organization, we need your support to deliver on that work that we know. So thank you very much again for helping us advance our mission. Thank you. And it's a pleasure for me to ask Jerry Leone to come to the stage and introduce our honoree. Jerry has served the people of Massachusetts with distinction as District Attorney of Middlesex County, First Assistant U.S. Attorney for the District of Massachusetts, and Chief of the Criminal Bureau for the Massachusetts Attorney General's Office. Today, he serves as Nixon Peabody's Government Investigations and White Collar Defense Partner. Ladies and gentlemen, Jerry Leone.
Thank you, John. And I will refer to him as Eddie during the course of the night, John. It's nice to see so many longtime friends and colleagues in one place, and it's an honor and a privilege to introduce my friend Ed. CRJ's 2014 honoree. I couldn't think of anybody better. And we talked before we came into the room, and although Ed may not want and may not need an introduction to people in this room, I believe he deserves one. And I want to explain his connection with CRJ to all of you tonight and talk about some of his less known but really meaningful and significant contributions that he's made to communities and people with CRJ. Now, the Ed Davis, who we've seen very publicly over the last several years, exhibits professionalism. He instills confidence in the public, and he exudes calm under pressure in the most anxiety-provoking situations. And I've been privileged to have been part of that and experienced those attributes firsthand as a wet-behind-the-ears prosecutor working up in Lowell several years ago when Eddie was a sergeant running a vice and narcotics squad. Oftentimes I found myself in an unmarked car trying to keep Lowell safe next to Big Ed. And believe me, over the years we've remained very good friends and our careers have developed in a number of different ways, but I can assure you this, from those days we were riding around in an unmarked car in the acre, he hasn't changed. Always exhibiting professionalism, instilling confidence in those around him and in the public, and always exuding calm under pressure, as was alluded to earlier by my good friend Scott, especially during the time last spring when we were dealing with the tragedy in the aftermath of the Marathon bombings. But what you may not be aware of is Ed's work with this program, with CRJ, with John Larrabee and the CRJ staff. And oftentimes in the business, I refer to the front end and the back end when I'm talking about the criminal justice system. Well, Ed has applied himself on both. On the front end of the criminal justice system, he has worked tirelessly to reduce youth violence. And on the back end, he has worked extremely well with partners on what we call reentry. And Reggie can tell you about reentry. That's helping individuals successfully transition back after having been incarcerated to lead productive lives. Change agents, that's what Ed Davis is, and that's what CRJ is. Change agents through creative and innovative approaches to improving lives. And today, Ed is collaborating. He's coordinating, he's cooperating, he's communicating. I love the 4 C's when we talk about this, but that's what Ed does with CRJ. He and CRJ are developing a way to improve communications between community law enforcement officers and adults and youth with developmental disabilities who are living in neighborhoods. Coming together, staying together, working together to achieve success. That's what Ed Davis has always been about, and that's what he's been about with CRJ. So tonight, we recognize Ed Davis for all of those contributions to CRJ and our communities and his work on behalf of all of us in seeking safe communities and a just society. The award that we'll recognize Ed with tonight reads as follows, the following inscription. Community Resources for Justice honors Edward F. Davis. His skill, compassion, leadership ability, and pursuit of excellence has advanced the profession of law enforcement and improved public safety. His commitment to advancing a just society has helped to foster a more effective criminal justice system, creating safer, livable neighborhoods and communities for us all. Ladies and gentlemen, Ed Davis.
Gonna find out. That stage whisper from Jerry was, do you know what the score is? I started to get pages from people who call me Eddie at about noontime saying you better be quick tonight, so I intend to be. First of all, this is a great honor, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate this organization thinking of me in these terms. But I know that, and I accept this honor on behalf of the men and women who are out there on the street doing the job every day. Now, we can all sit around and have planning sessions and think about what should happen and the way things should go, but the truth of the matter is, I mean nothing to the equation unless I'm able to convince the men and women on the streets who are working for the Boston Police Department to do things differently. And that's really what makes all the difference, and that's why I can stand up here and accept this award on their behalf. Jerry said that I'm calm in most situations, and I'd rather be in a shootout than stand here right now, to be quite honest with you. I mean that sincerely. Paul Swindlehurst knows that better than anybody as we try to put this together. I give him a lot of credit for the work that he's done on this and the work that John has done on this. But this is a good organization. This is an organization that makes a difference in people's lives. And you know, as you sit here and you think about what they do, you think about the the component of this organization that deals with developmentally disabled and people with mental health problems, and the homes that they run and the difference that they make in their lives. And then you think about the work that they do with reentry. These are some of our most hardened criminals coming back to our neighborhoods, to our city streets. And then criminal justice policy. Have you guys picked anything easy? I mean, we'll have to check you guys, because really, these are some of the most difficult problems that society has to deal with. And Greg Torres and Scott Haschbager and Tom and the rest of the members of the board here have done an unbelievable job in counseling people like me across this nation to do things differently. And that's how I started with this. It was almost 20 years ago, John, that you and Frank appeared on my doorstep. Frank Hartman and John came into Lowell and started a project with me called Safety First. And Frank is a Harvard professor, and he sat at that first meeting and he said, what we need here is a powerful neutral convener. And I was from Lowell. I said, what the hell does that mean? Who is this guy? But the truth of the matter was, he's a very smart man. And when you look at this board of directors, and you look at the staff at this great organization, if you're in government, you can learn a lot from people who have this commitment to solving some of the most complex problems that we have in our society. And so back in the Safety First days, Christine Cole's out here, a lot of the DAs that I worked with, I can't mention them all by name, but it's so tremendous to see all of you and to know that we've all stayed together over all these years. And Scott Haschbager, I was 25 years old, I had just been appointed a sergeant, and I got a call from the DA's office in Middlesex County, and Scott Haschbager invited me to speak at a conference on child sexual assault, which I was in charge of investigating at the time. And it was a bunch of assistant district attorneys and social workers who were implementing the new 51A law back in 1984. And that was my very first public speaking engagement. You created a monster. It's all your fault. All your fault. Started in. So I go back with some incredible people here in this room. And there were judges outside, Jay Blitzman and Mary Beth Heffernan, and just people that I've worked with over the years that have made an incredible impact on me personally and on the Commonwealth. And it's been an incredible honor to be able to learn from you. I took over the Lowell Police Department. I wasn't quite 38 years old when I took that job. And I remember thinking, after getting the job, what have you done? This is a tough city with some very complex problems. And I started to look outside for help. And I met people like John Larrabee, people at UMass Lowell, people who were smarter than me. And I've surrounded myself with people who are smarter than me my whole life. And that has worked out very, very well. You know, I hear Reggie speaking, and John, and the whole inner city weightlifting group, incredibly effective and incredibly targeted. That mentoring that happens in that gym makes a difference in the lives of these young men who are some of the toughest people coming back to the city. And if you give them options, they will not commit crime. And I'd much rather prevent crime than successfully prosecute it. And so Reggie, this leadership is just incredible you're showing. Congratulations to you. Molly Baldwin is out there. Molly, where are you? She's probably went to the hockey game, but Molly was there, was here earlier, and another one who was doing incredible work over in Chelsea and now in Boston that will make a difference in the lives of children here and make a difference in the crime rate. Incredibly successful. Daphne Griffin is out here, who labored with me week after week after week at those crazy command staff cabinet meetings that we went to. where we struggled with these problems. Every time a young man was killed, or a young woman sometimes, we would come back into that room and spend 4 and 5 hours really troubling over it and talking about what we could do for the family and what we could do to try to put the neighborhood back together again. But the truth of the matter is, the best thing that you can do is prevent it. And the work that John and Community Resources for Justice does prevents it. I have a favorite phrase. It was Isaac Newton that said, "If I can see things, it's because I stand on the shoulders of giants." And I've had an opportunity to do that in my career. And so when I look across this room and I see those people that I've had a chance to work closely with and make a difference for the community because of the partnership and the collaboration that we've put together, it makes all the difference in the world to me. My wife is here, Jane, our good friends, Muriel and Bob Long. You know, Bobby taught me the policing business. It's so great to be in this room with you. And then I look out and I see Lisa Belsky here and Paul Grogan and the people that, after I got that foundation here locally, moved me into a national position to be able to do things outside the city. I thank you all. I appreciate it. Go Bruins.
Congratulations, Ed. This recognition is so well deserved. On behalf of all gathered here tonight, in your honor, let me thank you again for your service and many contributions to the City of Boston, to this Commonwealth, and to the law enforcement profession. I call your attention to our screen, and I've been told by our event organizers that some of you will know what to do with #CRJReception. Seriously though, for those of you with a bent towards social media, I hope you will let your friends know about the wonderful time we are having here tonight. Finally, please start the countdown clock. For 20 minutes, there is time remaining until the silent auction must close. Please enjoy some wonderful dessert to the door to my right and maybe your left. And please bid for your favorite auction items to support CRJ. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your generous support.